Think of the kindest, most compassionate person you know. Someone who is selfless, who always stands for justice, and who would never harm another soul. Now, imagine that same person, over time, becoming unrecognizable, capable of cruelty, deception, even destruction. What causes this transformation? How does a good person descend into darkness? Today we're exploring the hidden psychological and social forces that slowly corrupt even the best of us. This isn't just a theoretical discussion, it's a warning. You may believe that you're immune to such a change, that you would never become someone capable of wrongdoing. But history, psychology, and human behavior tell a different story. The truth is unsettling. Under the right conditions, anyone can lose themselves. People don't turn into monsters overnight. It's a slow, almost imperceptible process that begins with small compromises. A tiny lie to avoid trouble, a minor rule broken for convenience, a decision justified by good intentions. At first, these seem harmless, but each time we bend our principles, we lower our moral standards. This is what psychologists call the slippery slope effect. One small step leads to another, and before we realize it, we are no longer the person we once were. Over time, what was once unthinkable starts to seem reasonable. We convince ourselves that our actions are necessary, that we are still good, even when our behavior contradicts our original values. This is the first step in the descent, self-deception. In the 1960s, psychologist Stanley Milgram conducted an experiment that revealed a disturbing truth about human nature. Participants were instructed to deliver what they believed were painful electric shocks to another person. Shockingly, most people continued the experiment, even when they thought they were causing serious harm, simply because an authority figure told them to. This experiment exposes a terrifying reality. Under the right pressures, even good people can become complicit in harm. They don't act out of hatred, but out of obedience, duty, or fear of consequences. They tell themselves, "I'm just following orders. This isn't my decision." And in doing so, they allow their morality to be rewritten. Another key factor in this transformation is tribalism. When people deeply associate with a group, whether political, religious, or ideological, they begin to see those outside their group as the enemy. Over time, this breeds dehumanization, the process of seeing others as less than human. History is filled with examples of how this thinking has led ordinary people to commit horrific acts. Wars, genocides, political purges, time and time again. People justify cruelty by believing their victims deserve it. Once someone sees another person as less than, empathy disappears and the unthinkable becomes possible. Here's one of the most terrifying aspects of this process. Most people don't see themselves as villains, even when they are committing horrible acts. Instead, they rationalize their actions to avoid feeling guilt. Psychologist Leon Festinger called this cognitive dissonance. When our actions contradict our beliefs, we don't change our actions. Instead, we change our beliefs to justify them. Imagine someone who has always believed they are kind and just. One day they harm someone, maybe emotionally, maybe physically. Instead of admitting they crossed a line, they tell themselves, "I had no choice. They deserved it. It was for the greater good." Little by little, their conscience fades, and the line between good and evil blurs. This is why some of the worst atrocities in history were committed not by people who saw themselves as evil, but by those who believed they were on the right side of history. The most disturbing question remains: could you, under the right pressures, become something you never thought possible? The unsettling truth is that no one is immune. The only way to prevent this descent is through awareness, self-reflection, and moral courage. Ask yourself, am I justifying actions I once thought were wrong? Am I treating someone differently because I see them as less than? Am I allowing authority or a group to dictate my sense of right and wrong? These questions may be uncomfortable, but they are necessary. Because the difference between a good person and a monster is not fate, it's choice. So, the real question is, who are you becoming?